Okay, Scott Bird here, Kendall Clements here with Tenant Solutions. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about when you're late on your rent.
Yep. If you
All
know
right.
you're going to be late.
If you know you're going to be late, what do you do?
Yep,
What are our best practices? What we'd advise you to do, and how to handle different situations. So,
Yeah. So I mean, there's life throws at us all kinds of variables that happen out there, and I think it's kind of a theme that we've had in our discussions is that communication is a capital idea. If you know you're going to be late for whatever reason, I think the first thing to do is at least open up a dialogue with your landlord or property manager to let them know that, hey, we're going to be late. But I think there's some things that they can do not prior to that, but along with that, I think having a plan to make up the payment
Yep.
in place.
absolutely. I mean, if you know you're going to be late, you're going to be late, right? So, what do you do at that point? And most property managers, most landlords will have some kind of a fee structure in place. So you should know right up front in your lease agreement what that fee structure looks like.
Yep. So what's common around here is a $50 late fee and $10 a day is a common in our current market area. But
So what's the grace period initially? So you'd have,
so it's a common to have a 5-day grace period.
okay, so you have until the 5th to pay rent.
Yep.
And then after the 5th, so on the 6th, if it hasn't been paid by the 5th, you'd have a $50 initial fee.
Yep.
And then $5 or $10 per day after that.
Yep. I think it's important that you go and look at your specific lease, because sometimes leases won't even have it in there. Other leases do have it in there. I know the state's default template doesn't even have a late fee structure built into it.
There's a late fee. There's not a penalty per day.
Yeah, it's a
per
late
diem.
fee, but not a. You're right.
Yeah.
And I've seen some that also have a percentage of rent is the penalty.
Yeah.
So if you have $1,000 rent, it could be a 10% late fee on there. I've seen different percentages out there.
So why sometimes are managers so strict on late fees? Why? I mean, can they be complacent on that? Can they waive it? What do they have as a discretion
Yeah. So
as a manager?
it depends a little bit on, if it's the individual homeowner might be a little bit more lenient than a landlord. Because if you think about it, a professional property manager is hired by the homeowner. There's a contractual or an agency relationship. That landlord or that property manager works for the homeowner out there. So they're bound by fiduciary
By that agreement,
duties,
yeah.
right? By that agreement
Yeah.
that they will do certain things. Now, this isn't true to all landlords because sometimes we have some leeway because we pay out our owners around the 10th. If I can get the payment in around the 8th, then I have some leeway that I can be flexible with it, right? But it's a discretion of that landlord. But by duty, I have to follow the lease agreement, right?
Yeah.
But if you approach me in advance and you come to me and say, hey, landlord, I'm going to be 2 days late because payday falls on a Friday and the 5th is on a Tuesday. I just need 2-3 extra days. That's a plan, and you stick to it, and you've been a good tenant, and you don't abuse that. I'm going to work with you because I have a little bit of leeway.
So you're going to benefit the tenants based on their proactiveness
Exactly.
with communicating and with paying that rent.
But what I wouldn't do is if you have no plan and you bury your head in the sand and there's no communication, and then you come in late and pay it and then ask me to work with you, I'm not as motivated because now I've had to chase you a little bit. I've had to put extra work and effort into it. And my trust factor has been dinged, right?
Yeah.
It's like a bank account. You can, as you have good behavior as a tenant and you pay your rent on time all the time, that builds up that trust factor that I have confidence in a tenant. But if you abuse that and you don't communicate with me and I now have to chase you and leave multiple messages and wonder what's going on, now my anxieties are starting to go up through the roof, and
Sure.
and I'm less likely to work with you
Yeah.
on that.
So if a tenant out there is fortunate to have a landlord that's really flexible, and they're never charge a late fee. Some of them are like that. They just are always cooperative. Our recommendation is don't abuse that.
Yeah.
Like really, if you come into 1 or 2 times, abnormal situation, call your property management, call your landlord, talk to them. Most of the time they'll work through it if they have that flexibility, and if not, then they're going to take the fee, charge the fees as they need to. But if you are always late,
Yeah, if you become a chronic problem.
Yeah, the managers are going to get fed up and start charging. So even if you're always on or late, your property manager is not going to be charging you. Just change that and pay on time.
And I think that's such good insight, Scott. Because if you're a chronic late payer, I as a manager now have to work really hard for you. My margins are really thin because sometimes we're as low as 7% management fee, up to 10% management fee. It's really a narrow margin. And now if I have to work harder for that same amount, when it comes time to do lease renewals, that can play into a factor.
Yeah.
Tight housing right now, you don't want to abuse that. So
Well, you
point.
times that by however many properties a manager's managing, and it becomes a very difficult problem if most people are late. So what we want to do as tenants is always make our managers or our landlords' jobs simpler. And the contract says to pay by a certain date, we just pay by it, and no problem. So there's tons of different ways that a manager might require payment.
Yep.
And as tenants, we just need to cooperate with them. We need to, if they require cash payment by a certain date, let's get it to them, or a cashier's check.
We kind of live in a cool day and age. I'm old enough that I remember we used to have to go into an office and pay our rent. Now we have software that you can just pay it with a push of a button. It's usually free.
Yeah.
You tie your bank account to it. But if you've been late a couple of times, that manager may require certified funds or cash to do it because there's a trust factor there. But whatever they ask you to do, it's just simple enough to follow that protocol.
And most management companies are going to allow some kind of an autopay, some kind of a direct deposit, or some kind of system that you don't have to think about paying. So our recommendation is to do that. Get on some kind of auto system that you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, I know our banks all have an auto pay type function, but I know there's going to be coming third-party services that do that.
And that's another recommendation. If you really don't have the ability to pay their method, maybe you can't, or you don't have a bank account, or can't get one, or you can't do any kind of auto system, use a third-party system. And Tenant Solutions, we offer that to our members. So if you're a paying member, that's one service you get included is a third-party paying system. So if you pay us, the third party, we pay your rent. Your relationship with your landlord that rent will always be paid on time. You'll never have late fees.
It's like an insurance for your payment.
Us.
If you think about it, it's like insurance for your payment, that if you get paid on the 7th but rent's due on the 5th, you have that assurance that the rent is already paid, and then you're set up with an auto pay to pay us on the 7th. It's taken care of. That's such an affordable peace of mind. It's almost not even worth worrying about. It's just so simple.
It is simple, and sometimes hardship comes up. Sometimes people get in situations where they just can't do it, but there shouldn't be any reason why a person would be late in their rent. We've solved that problem for you. We're glad to help you here at Tenant Solutions.
Yeah, if you think about it, if your late fee is $50 plus $10 a day, and you can't get it paid to the 7th, that's $70. But if you have that benefit through Tenant Solutions, you're $5. And so it's a no-brainer to me.
Yep.
So.
Well, that's all we have today. If you're going to be late this month, don't be.
Take a minute to do a couple of comments down below to see maybe what things you have tried over your tenancies and what's worked and what hasn't worked. We just want to get the best information, best practices out there to all of our members. Appreciate it.
All right.